Our next guest here on the Hard Hustle podcast says they aren't bad neighborhoods, they're struggling people. Shannon, I appreciate you coming on in. You started as a nail tech, no traditional credentials, and
Nope.
now you're leading communication at one of the largest food banks in the country. How
Yes.
did that happen? And welcome to the Bird as well.
Thank you. My house is a zoo. I'm an empty nester. So this is Dahlia. So she's hanging out because maybe we can keep her quiet. Yeah, my
Oh,
path isn't
yeah.
traditional. I think whether it's faith or karma or whatever you believe in, um, I believe good deeds and good things. My life is a representation that you're rewarded.
hmm
That's how I feel.
it's always very great to hear a story of I was a nail tech, life was lifing, and here I am, right? We think we have a plan. God plans is always greater than ours, and here
Yes.
you are leading, a huge organization. What first pulled you into this nonprofit world?
The funny thing is when I was a nail tech, this is this isn't something I admit to everyone. So, you know,
Ooh,
I got into pageants. I know. I didn't even tell you
early
this in
on,
the
or just as an
discovery.
adult?
No, it was when I was married. I had children. I had a client who said, you know, I love the way you do nails. Obviously, you're successful, but I think there's so much more to you. And I'd like you to get involved with the pageants because it builds your confidence. And that was a catalyst for building my confidence that I could stand in front of a bunch of people and be interviewed. But what got me to really notice philanthropy, first of all, my father was a hospital chaplain. So I think I was raised with that kind of mindset. But in the pageant world, a lot of times you go out to nonprofits, and that's where we have a children's hospital here, and I was part of the committee to help fundraise for them. And I just really saw that there are so many people in need in so many different ways. So I think that changed my mindset there. But then that gave me the bravery to leave and jump ship from what I was doing, sell my business. I interviewed and got a job in radio with no experience as a marketing and promotions director. And then I got brought into even more of that nonprofit world. We had a local nonprofit who someone in this world had the audacity to raid and pillage the inside. It was the Children's Cancer Center in Tampa.
Wow.
And back then, you were reading you were getting faxes on what you're going to put on the morning shows and what you're going to talk about. And I saw that in our local newspaper, and I'm like, we got to do something about it. So I went to our on air talent. I told them, and as an organization, we worked and leveraged all those listeners and that popularity to help rebuild this charity. So I told the executive director of the charity that if you ever need somebody full time, I'm your girl. So a couple of years later, I get a call from her. At the time, I was early pregnant with my third son, and I took a pay cut and decided I was retiring to nonprofit, which a lot of people feel like. And that was 23 years ago. And I've been in nonprofit in some way, shape, or form since, or I've taken positions that would uh, build my knowledge to better serve.
Love it. I would actually one up you on you talking about pageant. I wouldn't really say one up, but I would match you in saying that I used to do runway modeling. So I used to be on, doing the runway model and posing and all that.
Yes.
And it's always crazy to think what we used to do as young adults. Because I'm like, but I kid, I actually did a photo shoot earlier, and I told my wife, I was like, babe, look, I still got it. Look at
Yeah.
these photos. Look at this. If I wanted to do it, I still do it.
You
But
remind
there
me
is
of my
confidence
middle
in that.
son, very much the same. And I'm telling you right now, your mama was so proud when you were walking those runways and doing your thing. It's
I'll
proud
tell you
every
what,
moment.
you say that my mom never showed up to any of my shows. And and really was because, I was adopted, I was sexually abused. So at the age of 18 years old, we kind of got into it. And I said, you know what? I'm leaving. And I packed my bag, and at 18 years old, I left, and I never looked back. And when I did leave, there were so many different things. Actually, I would tell you that when I told her I wanted to do modeling, her response to me was like, "That's gay. Why don't you do something else?"
Oh, friend, I am so
And
sorry.
and I'm sitting here like, well, this is what I'm going to do. So I ended up doing it. So there was a lot of resentment, and as I got older, it wasn't really until I was probably 30 years old where I really kind of rekindled our relationship. Now, this is my mom that raised me. She had four of her own kids, adopted three of us. So there was already a lot of resentment how I was growing up and feeling, and that was just kind of adding on to it. But I realized that she was going through her own situation, and now it's so much better. And I would say that we finally had a conversation around 30 years old, where she kind of apologized, genuine apology, and says, "Hey, I know life wasn't good for you, and I tried my hardest. I'm so sorry. I can't go back and fix anything, but I do apologize for how I've made you feel and you felt throughout your years." And I thought that was such a genuine apology, and some people won't own up to it, you
Right.
know. So anyway, but I did over time. I would bring her like a blown up, because that's who I am, right? A blown up poster, and
Yep.
she was excited. I would say she still has it to this day, and she always likes to tell me like, "Look at this photo."
Yes.
So there was a little bit of excitement after when you're doing it. I think sometimes parents just see bigger for you. So for her, modeling probably, I mean, the words that she used was not good, right? But
Right.
they just had a different vision for you, But myself, I grew up always knowing what I wanted to do, and I was excited doing it. I tell you though, I really probably felt, you talk about confidence. It probably wasn't for me until I became a facilitator, and I never knew that I was going to facilitate. I just worked in the airline industry. It happened, and the reason I took on the opportunity was because what you just mentioned. I wanted to be more confident speaking in front of others. Like I was already doing it, but really being more confident.
Hmm.
And that's what I gained in the time that I was a facilitator. So I did a little bit of everything, because you said
Yep.
pageant. I felt like I got to throw in there that,
Yeah.
hey, we've all kind of been there as young kids, right? Kind
We
of
have.
exploring the world.
And I will tell you, and it's kind of the reason why you do your podcast and why we do ours at Feeding Tampa Bay. You learn a lesson with every conversation that you have. And
Yeah.
I just learned a very valuable one from you, right? Not everybody's life is like my experience. And that's why it's so important that we have these conversations, because people that are listening to us are learning too, right? And you
Yeah.
always have to be open to learn and be curious. And I'm so glad at that 30-year mark, both of you could come to a peace, and
Yeah.
that your soul is all right and you're doing good with it. Getting posters. Get her more posters.
Oh man, no, she tells me how proud she is now, and I think
Yeah.
one of the biggest things for her was my mom only kind of knew me, unfortunately, from what she's seen on social media, because when I left home, I just very surface level. That's just
Right.
the relationship that we had. So very surface level. Even though she lived 15 minutes down the street, I seen her once a year. I would call her every 3 to 4 months. Or maybe she'll have to call me sometimes.
Hmm.
And that's just how life, almost kind of the relationship was built. And she showed up at my wedding, and that's the first time she really got to see the people I surrounded myself with. And she's like, "Wow, these are the people that you surround yourself with. I'm just a proud mom." And she got to really see the energy that I keep around me, and those people that love
Yeah.
me and showed up. I mean, there was over 100, like almost 125 people at the wedding
Yeah.
that showed up, on a Thursday or Friday. That's a lot of people to show up. So she was just excited. And she still says it like, "I'm just so happy that you just ended up," because I also have brothers and sisters that there's 10 of us. My biological mom had 10 kids. Biological father had 8 kids. There's a lot of us. And I don't know where all of them, but I have brothers and sisters that are still living in the past and living with that resentment and won't let it go. And feels like somebody owes them something. And so, yeah, when even for myself, someone asked me the other day, "What are you most proud of?" That I forgot what exactly the question was. And really what I'm most proud of is that I get to really understand my value and know my worth. I think that's one of the biggest things that people don't understand at times. And you have, Shannon, right? You've had to sometimes fail to understand it
Yeah.
and realize it. And that's really life. So many people would give up. You actually had an issue. I'll come back to you. You had an issue where you mentioned hitting rock bottom when a job collapsed from under you,
Yes.
right? What did that season teach you?
Um, you know, that season taught me, and what I gained from it immediately was I need to stay grateful and I need to temper my confidence and not let it become conceit.
Mm,
I jumped into a job because I was so flattered, and I really was. But, I thought I left nonprofit and went into for profit. It was a startup, and it was family owned. And I went in there and worked for a while, and then they replaced me with someone in their family. At the time I was absolutely devastated and angry and all of the things, but the truth is that's the reality of going into a startup that's owned by a family. They have to do what they need to do, and do it in the best way that they can. But in that season, I had made a lot of choices that were just not right, and kind of lost myself a bit. So I it was very short. In my role and what I do now, I see folks that have struggled for a lifetime without coming out of the end yet. It's our job to help them. But for about 3 or 4 months, I got a taste of what not being able to pay the bills is. I got a taste of what making difficult choices is. I stopped, I've been on a medication all my life. I stopped taking it because I couldn't afford it. I would have my son, at the time I was going through a divorce, and I would have my son, when he came to be with me, I would cook him the little filet steak from Walmart, and I was eating ramen after he went to bed so he wouldn't see. I had friends that were putting money in my driveway to help me make sure I kept my lights on, because they knew I wouldn't take it if they handed it to me. So it was hard and scary times, and I felt very alone. And I decided to put myself back out there and make a decision to go back into nonprofit. The right opportunity would come my way, and it really did, and it changed my life. I've been in nonprofit, like I said, for 23 years, but this was the first time where I could exhale and understand what was happening in the world around me. So even though brief and difficult and a lot of tears were shed, and I was freaked out a lot, hiding a lot of my feelings from my children, it was one of the best lessons in my life. And I think it has placed me in the position I'm in today.
I'm glad you said that. Like, you started with a loss, but you said biggest lesson.
Biggest
And a
lesson.
lot of times that loss is exactly that. It's a lesson. And I had to learn that early in my years. I opened up a cafe. I was 21, 22 years old. And when it was time to close the doors, I didn't, because I looked like a failure, right? Like,
Yep.
that's just how I felt. I'm 27 years old. My friends are going to think I'm a failure.
Yep.
And I had a mentor that said exactly that. Ephraim, there's people 30, 40 years old that wish they can do what you did.
Yep.
He says, this is not a loss, it's a lesson. And you take that and you continue to move forward, and you just don't make the same mistakes again. And clearly, Shannon, you didn't make the same mistakes again, right? You haven't. But I also feel that when I say life be life, and like, life led you into a place where the work chose you. You didn't have to choose it,
Yeah.
right? The life experiences that you've had really led you to this position that you're in now. Your own sometimes personal food insecurity really kind of changed the way that you lead today. And you talked about that story, and look what you're doing today. Can you tell us about the organization that you're now a part of and what you're doing in the organization?
So I am now with Feeding Tampa Bay, which is one of the, I believe, 20th largest food banks in the nation, part of the Feeding America network. My role that I took originally was with Trinity Cafe, which was a really small, free restaurant. And you talk about people who influence you. Jeff Derry was the founder of that. And when I interviewed with him and I told him about my story and why I was led to be there and why I wanted to work in his organization, he made me a promise that if I trusted him, everything was going to be okay. He is an incredible man of faith, and he really helped be the catalyst for where I am today. So Trinity Cafe merged with Feeding Tampa Bay, and back in the day when I was in radio, I was on the back end of a merger. So my experience was when somebody merges, they wipe everybody out and get people new, right? So I had my one foot in the door for a very long time because I was afraid it was going to be taken away from me. But that's the importance of good leadership. Thomas Mance is our president and CEO, and we'll have to have him come on because his story is incredible with you. But Thomas Mance, J.C. Peters, there were leadership that was just like, come on, you got this, you can do this, nothing's going to happen, you can move forward. Once I gave up that insecurity, it just became the biggest blessing in my life. And now I'm director of public affairs for one of the largest food banks in the nation. I did not go to college.
Yes, I love the story.
I learn from every experience and interaction that I have with a human being, and I try to keep myself curious and open so I can understand better. And I have been blessed, and I continue to be blessed in the work that we do and the lives that we impact.
Shannon, I'm a big believer when you show up authentically, the blessings just happen,
Yeah.
right? And that's exactly why, because you were authentically you. I love the mention of I didn't go to school, and not to tell no one that they shouldn't go to school. Because myself, I'm probably like 2 classes away from getting an associates, and one day I'll finish it. But I've also opened up stores, restaurants. I've opened up furniture and
Yep.
appliance shops. I've been, general manager. I've traveled the world on somebody else's dime, working for the aviation industry. And as you mentioned, there is no college degree. And the only reason I want to go to school is to really teach my kids. Dad did both. You have options, but
Yeah.
you cannot tell me that you can't do either of them,
Right.
because I we have to practice what we preach, and that's the only reason I'm going to go ahead and do what it was. And I tell you about practicing when I preach. I kind of go back to my mom. Right when I was 30 years old, my I always felt like not seen, unheard, all these different things. And I remember one time my mom forgot my daughter's name. My daughter's probably like 1 years old, right? And granted, my mom has 15 grandkids, but that still hurt me. Like
Yeah.
that's when I really knew that I was really going. There was still some resentment that I kind of swept up. And I stopped talking to her. Like I would only text her when I wouldn't call, like I wouldn't pick up the phone. I would text her, and she realized something was off, and she's like, Everything okay?" And I said, "Yeah, everything's good." And then one day I said, "I gotta practice what I preach." I'm telling my daughter to use her voice and to
Mhm.
speak up. Who the hell am I to not do that, but tell someone to,
Yeah.
and so those moments in our lives when we're just in the unknown, those are really learning lessons. So I love that you talked about loss and lesson. I love that you talked about school. That shows it just show how authentic, but also how real it is out there. Just
Yeah.
because school is not for everybody. So if you find in a situation where you feel like, what should I go to school for? I Maybe you don't go to school. Maybe you find a nonprofit. I love that you found yourself a nonprofit as well, because I think that they're almost underrated. Like you could really utilize all your talents in the nonprofit world versus going to a corporate where you got hired for this and don't come out of your box.
Right.
That's what I love about the nonprofit world, that all your talents, you get to really use them whenever you want to use them. And I want to kind of go back to that. Oh, wait. Not, yes, no, Shannon, it depends.
So I got to tell you, it depends on the leadership. That's where you have
Okay.
to be really careful with the choices you make. And keep your eyes open and listen. Obviously, I didn't make the choice. The choice was made for me to go to Feeding Tampa Bay, but you know, nonprofit is that, but it's still a business.
Yep.
It's still run as a business. A successful nonprofits, profit.
Yep.
When I say profitable, I mean impactful nonprofits in the community. They're run tight like a business. You need to take the time and make sure that the leadership that you are working with and for has the same goals and ways to communicate that you have. And I have actually learned to be better because of where I'm at, but not every nonprofit is like that.
You're right. You're right. You're right, because I tested that. I tested that. The nonprofit that I currently lead as president, when I was just a seat on the board, I wanted to leave so bad. Well, actually, I did leave, and then they called me back and says, "We really need the young blood. We really need you to show up." And I showed up, and I was still just feeling the same way. And that same leader says, "I don't want to do this anymore," which rightfully he shouldn't have been doing it. And no one else wanted to do it, so I kind of stepped into it. When you talk about life be life, and
Hmm.
at that moment when I had to take over as president, I was also I had left my corporate job, my 9 to 5. I was going to do my own thing, and then I take this up. So I'm building a business as well as building a nonprofit that I don't get paid for. It's all volunteer work, and it was hard. And
Hmm.
I thought to myself, I am way over my head.
Hmm.
However, when I was 20 something years old and I got the opportunity to do Undercover Boss, they said, "Hey, we'll give you $5,000 to an organization of your choice." I'm originally from Boston, so I knew nothing here local in Orlando. And someone says, "Hey, why would you give for one time when you can give for the rest of your life?" And I started a nonprofit. So I already had nonprofit experience in my early 20s. So it led me to this moment where I'm now 33, 34 years old and taking over a nonprofit. And no one on the board ever knew that. Why? Because we didn't really know each other. Like
Right.
that's one of the biggest things that bothered me, is that people didn't even know my talents, because the leader wasn't trying to really engage us and, "Hey, what do you do? What is your talents? What are you good at? Hey, I think you'll be great doing this. So yeah, a
Yes,
leader does truly make a difference because they can see where you're good at. They can, they work with you. They pour into you.
they do. They
So
envision
I
your
do love that.
potential,
Yeah, yeah,
right? I,
100%.
I didn't ever see myself in a place where I am now.
Yeah.
And
So
great
good to.
leaders can see where they can nudge you into and you rise to the top, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's
So
what a
it's
good leader
not,
does.
leadership isn't about really leading people, it's about understanding where they're at and seeking and asking the questions, right, on where their talents lie to better the organization or the business, or the restaurant, the cafe.
Hmm.
That and I'm just so excited for you because you learned this so young. To me, it
Yeah,
took me a
yeah.
long time to become in my heart and my mind where I am today. I'm very grateful for it. But I didn't go to school because I had my first child at 21 years old. I was working my fingers to the bone, supporting a family. Um, it's just like you said, life be lifing. It's just the way it is, and either you take every advantage and move forward with it, and you just don't let it crush you. And there are times where it crushes for sure,
Yeah.
but you
Oh
gotta
man.
rise above it.
Hey, real quick, if you enjoying the podcast, we first want to say thank you. And we also just want to give you a little insight of what we're up to at Francis. Some don't even realize that we're working with organizations to help them use AI to create that real human communication experiences, whether that's actually supporting your families, those patients, or the entire community. We're actually creating tech that connects. Check it out, francis.ai. There's a moment that you mentioned the first time I spoke to you about a woman, and she told you, "I don't have anybody." Right? This was at the Trinity Cafe before you guys did the merge.
Yeah.
How did that moment also shift your perspective?
So when I got that role, I had to volunteer for a week and immerse myself in our guests. And our guests were a lot of folks with lower income, veterans who are struggling with the life that they gave up for us. Let's put that clear.
Mm.
And homeless. And I sat at a table. So the concept of Trinity Cafe is that you come in for a free meal, three-course meal with a snack, a dessert, everything you could need, no questions asked, and you are served like you're in a real restaurant. So it's a dignified experience for someone who that might be the only conversation they have, or the only people that treat them with dignity and don't question them because they're unhoused, they're living outside. So I sat down to this woman, with this woman, and she clearly hadn't had a space for hygiene or anything like that. And we just had a conversation, and anybody that had ever been in her life was gone. She didn't know what to do. She didn't have someone, we talk about folks and moments that inspire us. She didn't have any of that she could grab onto. And that was my first interaction with a guest. And it was like, I was filled with instant gratitude. My short time with struggling with food insecurity and making terrible choices was a lifestyle for this woman. She didn't have anybody. And it was like, how can I be somebody, even briefly, for these? I'm in the right place. This has to be my home. I cried with her. I thanked her for telling me her story. And she really changed me. And it'll be 9 years since that moment. And I try to learn something from every person that I encounter, because people don't want to struggle.
Hmm.
Nobody wants to struggle. Nobody wants to ask for help. People talk about folks taking advantage of the system. There's always in the cream of it all, a bowl of cream, huge. There's always one little speck that will ruin it. One little thing that ruins for all. People need to focus on the huge bowl of cream, take a spoon and get the little speck out, because that is what life is truly like in our world, in my world, in other food banks. There's over 200 food banks across the nation. You have your nonprofit. People need people, and you can inspire the good in someone. Take the time to do it.
And when you go down this path, it happens to anybody, right? Doesn't discriminate. And during pandemic, you were actually able to see that. You
Oh,
mentioned about seeing some Porsches in food lines, right? Now
yes.
these Porsches, what, $100,000 vehicles?
Yeah,
What did that reveal about food insecurity and its touches?
well, for every listener of you have, We all lived through something together for once in our life history, but not just here globally. And that is the moment that food insecurity and knowing that in a moment your life can be changed, the whole world understood. I think before when folks thought of someone who was food insecure, it was someone that was asking them for something on a roadside. It was seeing someone on a tree with all their belongings around them. And that just isn't the facts. You know, right now we're in a time where so many hardworking families, dual income families, cannot meet the needs of their household and have to get a break from somewhere. So where I am, and in our food bank, all food banks are different, but in our food bank, we envision thriving communities. We know that it's possible, but the thing is we can't solve it alone with food. So under our roof, we opened a brand new facility about 16 months ago, and 30% of that facility brings people into our world, and instead of just giving them food, asking them what else they need. So currently, and that number is growing, we have 20 nonprofits that address all of those needs, and we help facilitate, and they have one place where they can solve their problems, or begin to, right? Have the conversation. We have legal help if something's going on. We have a financial counseling that can help you with the budget that you already have. We connect you with utilities, because did you know that utilities will actually have a conversation with you and not just shut your stuff off? You know, so we bring all of these folks under one roof to really try to solve the root cause of what they're going on so they don't need us anymore. Yeah. And then they come and volunteer.
That's the most beautiful thing about it, when someone can get back into the cycle of where they come from. And a lot of times they grow through it, right? Like today they're volunteering, one day they run in the organization. One of the things that when people ask me, how do I feel about my life experiences? That was a really good question. And it was a friend that asked me, and I said, I could only answer it in one word, and it was grateful. Like, those experiences led us to who we are today and where we are today. And I ask you, what is your one word of all these things? Because you're in this space today, and I think so into it the way you are because of the experiences you've had, and you've encountered it, and you understand what that felt like. And you just want to make sure other people can overcome the same way you've been able to overcome. What is that one word if you had to kind of paint the picture for what it actually looks like,
One word is
or how
very
you
hard.
feel?
And to me, it's the tip of the iceberg, but I feel blessed. I feel in the moment, make no mistake. It was anything that's hard. You know, I mentioned my father, who was a hospital chaplain. He was in his 80s, and he refused to not go into the hospital during COVID, and he ended up dying from it in 2021 and passed away in his own hospital. That was very hard for me, obviously. But what I took away from it is his commitment to help other people was not going to stray him from what he needed to do. So I am
Wow.
blessed from even that heartbreaking moment. It had a real purpose for him, and I had to let him live into his purpose. So I don't know. It sounds
I
crazy,
love
but
it.
I
No,
am
bless.
blessed. But there's so much more than the word
Yeah, yeah,
blessed
yeah.
can
No,
give.
I love it. And I also love that, I think it was during the pandemic that you started the podcast. Is that correct? Stick a fork in it.
We did. We did. You know, stick a fork in it. We all know we need somebody. You know, and that comes from that Lady Mary that I met around in that round table in Trinity Cafe. And our conversations are sticking a fork in what your life and experience has been, who was there for you. If you haven't, why not? Recognize them, be thankful for them. And we just interview tons of people throughout the Tampa Bay area and really nationwide. We've had some really great guests on that tell the story to be thankful and look for those folks that help you become who you are, because there is not one human being of any age who hasn't gotten to where they are without the influence or help of another.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
You talk
Yeah.
about your life up until you were 30. There were still people, you know, in your childhood, you were let down by what parenthood was for you.
Yeah.
But clearly, there were people who stepped in that space for you and helped you
Yep.
come to peace with your life. We all have it. We all have that story. It's every single one is unique. And I just love our podcast because it gives us that moment to learn about other people and take lessons from every single conversation we have, just like I'm taking lessons from you today.
Oh, stop it. Shannon, what you mentioned though, how we, those moments in our lives, or those people in our lives, one, I always tell people, it takes one person, one story to change the way that you think, change the way that you live, which is why we have to be very mindful of what we tell people. And I've encountered some that come back to me after 10 years. Actually, it was one of my first employees when I was in Subway. And after 10 years, just, we had lunch. And one of the things he's like, Ephraim, I remember, and I was 20 years old, okay? And he says, I remember when you said everyone has a story, Ephraim. And you are right. I have a story, and I wanted to make sure that I changed the way that that was. And now he's an entrepreneur, and he says, because I seen you do it, I know that it's possible. And it's like, you don't even know sometimes that you plant these seeds.
Yeah.
Saying that somebody planted seeds in me. Yesterday, you talked about that. I called the chief development officer of Subway from the Undercover Boss days. Like, he's no longer at Subway, but it was still a relationship that was built from that show. And I called them because last year, as I mentioned, when I left the corporate world, it was hard. Okay, it was hard. I have my stay-at-home wife. I have two kids. I have a mortgage, and I left being comfortable. I left a consistent paycheck because I believed in myself. You know, really for the first time, like I've always kind of had one foot in, one foot out in the non-profit or in the corporate and entrepreneurship world. And I decided to step away. But it was one of the things that he said to me that I still remember. He said so many things to me throughout the years. But last year, he says, Ephraim, you know, sometimes people teach best what they need the most. And for years, you've told people to know their worth. When do you
Yeah.
know yours? And it was like that, damn, you're right, you know?
Wow.
And it was valuing,
Wow.
it was so hard. I didn't know how to value my talents, right? All these tools, just like you, Shane, we have all these tools in our toolboxes, and we don't know how to piece them together to even give it to somebody. And that's where I was at. It's like I had all this experience because of what I've been able to do, but I didn't know how to package it. Plus, when you're in a job, corporate world, they damn near price you, and this is what you make, right? And this is how much we're going. So I didn't know how to go past that. But I'm seeing other people do coaching and charging hundreds of dollars. I'm like, oh my God, I could never do that. But I had to value my time. Everything that happened in my life is because it's for this moment. And then another one was my wife. You know, great partners. You talk about great partners, right? Your husband's a great partner. My wife, towards the end of it, when money was tight, and I didn't know where the next paycheck. I talk about knowing my worth. I had to leave a client because when I told him this is what I want, he said, "Well, I can't give you that." So I didn't have no money coming in. I told that to my client, and he says, "Well, we have to finish up what we have, and that's it." And I'm like, "All right." I was getting people to. I had a job. I do like MC weddings sometimes, right? And the guy called me. Mind you, I had no money coming in. He says, "Well, you MC this wedding," and I'm like, "Yeah, $100 an hour." He said, "I can't pay you that," and I'm like, "Well, I can't do it." But in my mind, I'm like, "Is this stupid of me?"
Yeah. You're like, oh
You
my
know what I
God, what did I
mean?
just say?
I didn't need money, but it was that faith. It was the knowing my worth. And when I tell you the floodgates opened after that, but it was people in my life that poured into me. And at that moment, more than anything, I have to really separate the noise because everyone has something to tell you. But it was those that like the Don Furtmans. It was my wife. It was those my best friends. That's my siblings. So my siblings that were there for me and really poured into me. Because sometimes as leaders, we pour into others, but no one teaches us how to pour into ourselves when we're in these moments. You know, and you doing stick a fork in it 170 episodes later, plus, right? At the
Yeah.
170 was the last time that we spoke. I can only imagine there was some surprising things that you learned from those conversations. You talked about how we're learning something today. What was the most surprising thing you've learned from those conversations of stick a fork in it?
So before I answer that, I wanna respond to what you just said and that amazing quote that actually I physically got chills over. And you keep mentioning faith. Hope is something that you wish for, right? You wish things are going to be better. Faith is something that you do and take action.
Mm,
And I actually heard that quote for the first time today. And I was like, that is so truthful. And we're having this conversation today. And it just hit me in the head. Like having faith is like jumping off and making it happen. And
Yeah.
those folks have inspired you. Wow. I think I take inspiration from every single person, whether it's a better understanding of something that may be in my thoughts, something that jumps into my brain. It's just recent, so it's easier for me to pull something recent. We have school pantries in schools, food insecurity. You know, if you think about 1 in 4 children are struggling with food insecurity and don't know where their next full meal, healthy meal will come from. If you look at a park when you drive by it, or let's say you have Little League football players playing on a field, 1 in 4 of those children don't have enough to eat. If that doesn't impact you as just a human being, I don't know what will. So we have all these pantries, and we have a particular partner that is helping transform what is a free grocery store inside a school that benefits the school, but to be open to benefit their entire community. And their way of thinking, she was born into a education family. Like her aunt and her mom was a principal, and she just naturally went into education. But her choice is she saw something missing terribly in education and took the steps and grew into a space where she's impacting an entire community. If you open your heart and mind, you are unstoppable. And this woman, to me, is an unstoppable force in our community. And she's part of a huge organization. But I am just so impressed with her way of thinking and her commitment. Again, being kicked off by being part of a family that this is what they do, and making it much bigger and brighter for the community and for those children that are struggling.
That's so good. And one other thing that I love that you do on the podcast is you always ask someone, I always ask someone, what is the know your worth moment? But you ask, who is your greatest influence? Why do you ask every guest that?
That's teaching us a lesson every single time, because it can be a family member. You know, you talked about sitting at a table and it's someone in corporate for you. And I think our podcast is important because you got to look and recognize and be thankful for those moments, because they're all different. They're all different. There is someone that was part of that turning point. I've had, obviously, from the changes in my life, it went from a pageant queen, right, to a radio station believing I could do something, to a faith-based, amazing human being who very gently handed me over to a CEO, one of the best in the world, I have to tell you. And all of those people helped my path and believed in me and believed in my potential. We all have them. Look for them, be grateful, because in those moments that are low, no one would have invested in you if you weren't worth it. No one would have invested in you if you weren't worth it. So there's
Right.
something or someone around the corner that's going to help you get yourself out of where you're at.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe in that. Life is not
I love it.
easy.
It's not.
It's not.
It's the roller coaster, right? There's the ups and
It
the
is.
downs. If you're not
It
riding on
is.
this roller coaster, are you even living? Is what I
Right.
like to say.
Find your
Yeah.
people. Find
Yeah.
your people, or they'll find you. Recognize it.
You've showed so much love to your leader that leads this organization, right, from day one.
Yeah.
And one of the things you mentioned at the beginning of it was his faith. And recently I met this leader, and he said something to me that I would always remember. There's always those things that you will remember from someone. And even though it's like probably our first conversation, one of the things he says, a faith-led business will teach you more than hustle ever will. And I'm like, wow.
Amen.
Wow. So I think about your leader, right? Like that's what wins. It's not it, we can hustle all day, but if you don't
Yeah.
have that faith,
Yeah.
you're not winning. So I love that you surrounded yourself with that as well. And that's what also kind of anchors us is that faith.
Yep.
It is the belief that we can do it because we've experienced what it was to be at the bottom. And we want others to also experience, hey, today you're at the bottom. Today you may feel someone's writing your story. But at some point, you grab that pencil, you start to tell your own
Yeah.
story, right? That's how I look at life. And that's what really my experience, that's the way I looked at it in my experience, is that at some point, the adoption, the sexual abuse, the everything that I was dealing with, that was someone writing my story. At some point, I decided I was going to write my own story. Even when we go back to what my mom said to me when I wanted to model, it wasn't her story to tell anymore. She can
Right.
no longer narrate that story. it was up to me to go narrate that. And I'm glad I did because of me sharing the stories. We get to have these conversations, Shannon. And that's why I love authentic, real conversations. I mean, this whole conversation, the way you showed up was real authentic and real. And when we talk about leaders, there's no better leader than someone that shows up authentically them, right? I love those leaders. Those leaders, I get excited to go work for those leaders because I realize there is no true like there's an agenda, but not an agenda to just sit here and take from people and make themselves feel better. It's how do I pour into these people and lift them up to
Hmm.
either be just as good as me or even better. We
Right.
talked about great leaders. That's
Yeah.
what that leader should
Or
be,
even better, right?
or even better.
And
Yeah.
that mindset, some people come about, you've come about that mindset very young, which makes my heart happy for you. And really your family, because you're raising two children in a different world and making negatives, using them in a more positive way, right?
Yep.
Sometimes it takes folks a long time. You think about this is kind of cheesy, but what Kentucky Fried Chicken didn't start until the gentleman was like in his 70 or 80 years old, right?
Yeah.
I don't think I've had the confidence that I needed to be who I need to be, and I still need to grow and add with it till I was 50 years old. I had more self doubt than you can imagine, and it's letting those people in to let me know I'm all right, that I can
I don't know
just
where
be
it's at.
me.
I was trying to show you that must be somewhere in the house. I was trying to show you. You said mindset. That is truly the number one thing that I had to change was the mindset, the way that I was believing, seeing. So I created this 30-day mindset journal for entrepreneurs and creatives
Ooh,
because it was truly what I was having. It was, and it's really just a journal with affirmations, but also questions. I went to therapy one time in my 30s when I really became a dad at 30 because as you mentioned, I became a dad, all these things of becoming of a child and being, my family left me at 2 years old and all these different things start to really kind of rush back up. And I'm sitting here like, oh my God, I just want to be successful. I just want to, I almost in my mind is like, I just need to pass 2 years and I'm better than my dad ever was, right? Like that's just how I look at it. Like life to me is just a challenge, so those are some of the things I was thinking of, but it also broke me down and I had to see therapy. And it was the way that it went down. My wife was in postpartum. She was going to therapy. It was her session that day. And she says, hey, I think you should go instead,
come with.
you know? No, no, by myself. She
Oh,
just said,
oh,
you go.
you take the
So,
appointment.
yeah, you take the appointment. And I said, okay, like, shouldn't be that bad, right? And I tell you, that was one of the best therapists and best experiences that I ever had. So, with that experience of her just asking questions, and those same questions that I was answering gave me the answers that I needed. It's exactly what I did in the journal. Is that I wanted to put questions in that us as leaders don't ask ourselves on a daily, but allows you to really sit here and think like, wow, this is really good question.
Hmm.
Sometimes we need that because that imposter syndrome starts to kick in and it's super loud, right? Confidence. We talk about confidence. Yeah, we have it, but some days are better than others.
Sure.
So everything what we have today, some days is just better than others. Not every day do we wake up and we're ready to conquer the world.
Oh
Some
no.
days we're like, oh my God,
Well,
am I
and
really
not
built for
every day
this?
do you want, you know, sometimes it's about intimidation, right?
Hmm.
You go into a room or an opportunity, it's like intimidation and bravery. You talked about leading folks to go beyond you, right?
Hmm.
Exceed more than you ever have. That's difficult at times. It's
Yep.
intimidating, you know? But your mindset needs to be you're supposed to be helping the people in your world be the best that they can be, regardless of where you are or your thoughts. They need to grow and thrive. And I think that's a conscious decision and it's a difficult one at times, but it's what's needed to have things go on and continue and grow and have success.
Shannon, with everything you've been doing over all these years, whether it's in the nonprofit, it was in the music, sorry, the radio business, pageant, is there a story or a moment that still gives you goosebumps that you can recall?
Oh, it will forever. A lot of my motivation for the things, I have three sons, and from they're everything. how I walk my life, how I respond, all of those things impact them greatly because they're going to go through life just like I did. They are my motivation. They are my greatest joy. They are why I work hard. And they are why it's really important to me to be authentic. They need to see that so they can be better than I was, right? And have a different life ahead of them. And one of my greatest joys of my three children is they are so very close. Two of them live together right there where you are in Orlando. One has his own family, but the moment I realized as they were becoming adults that they had conversations that had nothing to do with me. They connect regularly without my influence. That's what you want, because when I'm one day not here, they will have each other. And I think unapologetically, they are my greatest influence, my greatest achievement, and my greatest motivation.
Oh man, one day I can't wait to I'm still at that 1 and 4 year old stage. I can't even imagine
Woo!
getting to that stage.
But it is
But
it
no.
is when you do get to the stage that I am, and you're so far more advanced than I was at your age. It's difficult when your nest is empty. That's why I have 4 dogs, 4 chickens, the parrot. You know, I filled my
The bird then
the
left, didn't like
bait.
the conversation. What happened to the bird? It didn't like the
She's
conversation.
she's cruising on the floor, like
Oh.
spreading feathers everywhere. But yeah, yeah, it's a journey. But gosh, when you get to this space, it's such a gift, such a gift.
Shannon, I had so much fun just talking to you on this podcast, and we have to start wrapping it up. But I really want to talk about just food. That's kind of the space you're in, right? And food is so universal. Everyone can connect to the mission. What's your call to action?
You can help somehow, somewhere, right? You talked about being on a board, your talents, where you changed the trajectory of that board because you recognized the talents that the people had and what they were good at. You don't want to force somebody into a pigeonhole. So, obviously everything good happens around a table. People
Yeah.
understand the need for nutritious food. That's kind of a no-brainer, but you can volunteer, you can give. In our world, $1 equals 5 meals, because you can imagine the bulk that we deal with. In this year alone, if you take July from July, 100 million meals have been distributed outside of Feeding Tampa Bay. 100
Wow.
million. It still isn't enough. So if
Wow.
that's something that's important to you, not just, every county has a food bank. We have 10 counties in our world that we support and help lift those neighbors. Everyone in the United States of America has a food bank that supports them. Seek them out if you need it. There is nothing to be ashamed of. You cannot be successful without access to healthy food. 2, volunteer, right? Give of your time. It is precious. In our world, every hour of every single volunteer is worth $33.75. It saves $7 million a year at Feeding Tampa Bay in cost because we have 8,500 volunteers in our database. We have 4,500 that we need every month, and that is going to grow to 8,500 people we need every month to help us. Cannot live
Wow.
life without a volunteer in the nonprofit world. You can give, right? Again, $1 equals 5 meals in our region. Orlando area has their own region. Seek them out. But also what you can do is share. Share this podcast, share your local food bank, because not only does that help support the food bank, but most importantly, it takes the stigma away that there's something wrong with needing help. There is
Yeah.
nothing wrong. We all need help. We've talked about influence, whether you know it or need it or not, whether your table is full of food or not. We've all needed someone. Find that place for you that soothes your soul to support your community. It's the only way our communities can thrive is us all being a part of it.
Yeah, we all need a little bit of something. And we talked about a little bit of everything that we
Yep.
have had to encounter or use in our own lives.
Yes.
What's your vision for the next chapter of hunger relief in America?
We've already started on that vision, right? Instead of just treating the symptom, finding the ways and having the individual conversations to treat the cause. and help someone put their food on their table. It's the only way it's going to work. It's the only way we can end hunger. You can't throw 100 million meals at the community and solve the problems that they have. There is a root cause or root causes that other nonprofits, other partners can help lift, right? We do food well. We really do. It's other partners that do all their other things. And it's important for people to understand is we don't compete. We may compete for those dollars out there, and that's very true. But we don't compete with the vision of helping the person who needs us. So that's how we put them all under our roof. So we've already started on that vision of flourishing communities, not just for now, but for generations to come. And at Feeding Tampa Bay, we believe it's possible, and we have faith, not hope, that we're going to make it happen.
All right, now Shannon, where can people find the organization? Are you guys on socials? What's the website?
FeedingTampaBay.org is our website. You can find our podcast there. We're on every social you can imagine. We have a very robust social team. It gives you all the up-to-date information versus going to our site. You can find food there, and on the contact page, I'm right there as leading the PR and all the connections that are external. Yeah,
I love this.
feedingtampabay.org. But I encourage you, because we know in the podcast world, you can be anywhere listening.
That's
You
it.
find a place.
Anywhere in the world.
Find a place if you need food. Don't be ashamed. And find that nonprofit that you're making a difference with.
All right, leave you with this closing question, the blind question. If you can go back to that moment, eating ramen eating ramen so your son could eat steak, what would you whisper to yourself then about where your story was headed?
Don't give up. Now you're making me teary.
And it sounds so cliche, right? Don't give up. But that is so true. Those moments, I'll tell you something, Shannon, real quick. I get, so you can get back to, back to tears. As sometimes we feel like we're in this dark tunnel, and we don't know how far we got to go. And sometimes you see the light at the end of it. And that should give you the faith. We talked about hope, but the faith, when you see it and you just know there's better on the other side. Because wherever you're at today, and we are living testimonies of that, Shannon, that wherever you're at today, that doesn't mean that's where you're going to be at tomorrow.
Right.
Your life would change
In a
at
moment.
an instant,
In a moment.
okay? From second to second, your life can change. One call, one person can change your life. And that's why I love these podcasts, because it's those stories that we tell authentically as ourselves that inspires someone to say, wow, look at her. She's in the same situation that I'm in today. That means I continue to have faith. It's going to happen for me. But once you give up, you've automatically lost that opportunity.
Yeah.
So, as you mentioned, don't give up. Go ahead, Shannon.
Don't give up, because I want to add to that. One of my very best friends in the world, and her name is Lynn Austin. And when I was going through that and she knew it, she is the one who gathered all of our friends to give any money that they could and put in the driveway. That is the moment that I really understood. I didn't understand it when I was eating the ramen, didn't know how I was going to get out of it. But when that envelope was in my driveway, because she knew I would never take it, and she had my son go down and pick it up and hand it to me, that was when I felt don't give up. And why? Because I had people. We have people. I learned a very valuable lesson. Don't be ashamed to dip into your people in the times that you need them the most.
Yes, yes. Let the pride go.
Let
And
it
that's what
go.
happened, people. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for the amazing work that you're doing. I can see why you run communications, because you communicate very well, and why you were part of the radio. And I just feel that life, life be life in, but it leads us to purpose. It leads us to passion. And it's not always about a paycheck. And you had to understand that as well, right? And I had to understand that it's not always about the paycheck, but the impact that we can actually make at the level that we're at. It's amazing. And what we do, we love, because it's truly doing it out of the kindness of our hearts and knowing that as we're here, God wants us to do his work, and we are. And we're leaving this place better than what we found it, all because we show up
Yeah.
authentically ourselves. Even when things were hard, we've never given up. And we hope that people that are watching right now, that you understand that today may be a tough day, but every single day that you show up and you never give up, it just gets a little bit better. and a little bit better until you realize you're at the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So we thank you guys for watching. Shannon, I thank you for your time, for being authentically you, for introducing us to the bird at the beginning of the show. Thank you. We didn't see the pigs and the chickens, but we'll see them next time.
Next time,
And
I'll have the whole
next
gang
time.
in the office.
Guys, my name is Ephraim. This is Shannon with the Heart and Hustle. We'll catch you on the next one. Later.
Thank you.